we get people to talk to each other about their practice. That is what Brandon was talking about, the intellectual community. Now, why, in all of my years in early childhood, is this notion, because they're little, so too is our thinking ability as adults with little children, is just demeaning. But we're in the know right now. We are vogue fashion. We are the ones people are looking to, early childhood educators, because of all the research in neuroscience. And they realize this is the level that is, we better know what we're doing with these young children. So you actually have more of a voice than we've ever had before, and it's really our obligation to use it. In fact, it's actually going to utero to 3 now, all the research will come up. So what we have to be careful is it doesn't become the kindergarten, first, second, third grade now that they have all this neuroscience. So this is a sideline of beliefs. So how do we think about setting the table and bringing people together? That's really what we're focused on at this moment in time. To start, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is the importance of listening. How do you listen? Why do you listen? What are you listening for? When do you listen? Really, as leader, majority of your time should be, really shouldn't be talking, should be listening. So it's a complex thought when you think, well, wait, I've got to share out and implement and mobilize and inspire. You do. You have to do all that. A large part of your responsibility, though, is to listen so carefully, because that informs your next step, your next word choice.
And that's so hard.
It's so hard. It's so hard. So we're going to practice right now. Listen. And I'm just going to say on the front end, you're going to decide yourselves that how much you want to mix up your engagement today, because we're going to do a fair amount of partnering practicing on different things. If you feel it's of great value, stay with the partner pair on your own site. That's your choice. If you feel like you want to mix it up a little bit and have a different point of view, do so. Okay? So right now, this is going to be an active listening exercise. And these chairs can move. You can say, create a little more space between pairs if you want. Take time if you want to decide with whom you will be doing this. It isn't more than 10 minutes total. Okay, just take a minute. You good with where you are? People want to change. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings if you change. Do this for your own insight. You ready to change? Anyone mind moving around a little bit? And Brandon, will you be able? Do you have time? Okay.
Or we can just absorb the third person.
I really want everybody to be engaged if possible. And Brian is willing to be a partner.
I'll go with Brandon.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Cindy needs somebody.
Oh, well, we were considering.
Oh, split.
Oh, all right.
We'll
So-
split. We'll split.
You're gonna, yeah, we'll split.
Okay, so quickly change seats.
Oh, fine. Yeah.
One of you.
Okay, got it.
Okay, here's how it's going to work. You're going to be engaged in your partner pairing space. You are going to trade roles for the first 3 minutes. Well, first identify who's listener, who's storyteller. And for the first 3 minutes, the storyteller is going to share out a story. It could be literally your trip to work, to the workshop today. Or it could be a story about a family member, or it could be anything you want to share for 3 minutes. Content's really not that relevant. So don't get hung up on that. So in 3 minutes, storyteller, you're going to share your story to the listener. The listener is going to be as passive as possible. There are no gestures. There is no verbal exchange. You're listening. 1 minute. When you hear the chime, that means listener is going to repeat the story exactly how they heard. Exactly how they heard. Okay? That's how you're listening.
No notes.
No notes. Then you'll hear the chime, and that will mean switch roles and repeat the same process. Everybody good? Why are you dreading this? Body language. All right, I'm going to hit the chime. Storytellers, have you been identified? Storyteller, everybody identified? Storyteller will take a minute. That's your story? Okay. Really, literally, I woke up, I decided to put on this dress, and I hit the subway.
We love.
Not me, you also do that. This? All right. Ready? Here we go.
So I was in the airport and get on the plane, get off the plane, and the Uber shut off the regular car.
Lots of good food.
Really not the guys like trying to shove it in, fitting. I'm like, put it in the back seat, I guess. Like, he's like, no, I can fit it. It's right at the next step. So trying to shove it.
Like that.
I'm like, just put it in the back seat. I'll sit back. He's like, no, looks like it needs comfortable because I'm trying to drive. Well, like I want to get going. I'm tired. So finally, let's put it in the back seat. We're driving. Get home. I get home. It doesn't fit anywhere. It's just sitting in my room. And it's really nice things that my parents decided to buy me suitcases. So this past weekend, I brought it with me and a lot of stuff. And we just closed for like 2 days, and I left it at their house. I set up one of theirs, and the suitcase is back with me because I'm going to London, and I did grab it, store it, and grab it. Yeah, acknowledge that.
That was actually 2.5 because I didn't want to stretch your mind too much. Okay, 2.5. Now, listener, retell exactly what you heard.
You did it, and then you just right. But I am you guys. It should be great.
You missed like a few details, but like, no, at the airport I was concerned that it wasn't going to fit, and I was confused why it wasn't going to fit because they were selling at the airport. But it was bad.
You know,
Alright, so valid. You did good. You did good, girl.
So that was the equal amount of time that the storyteller used. Okay, switch roles. Listener becomes storyteller, storyteller becomes listener. Ready? No response. Listener, take the next 2.5 minutes to retell what the storyteller said. Verbatim.
Okay. So on Monday night, this event happened before that I was and I didn't feel like running dressed and decided to run. And found this whole dress that was like 7 minutes, but he figured because right. Yes. He's excited to go and then we got to the event at Seabury. Loved her first. It was there, we spent all night. We were chatting, having a great time. At the end, we were singing. And normally when it reacts, but since the friend today, you're a little nervous about it, so you scrape it, and your friend got really mad about it. She said she was totally and then at the end of the night, she was going to suggest something like now I'm back. Nothing's working.
She was on the other side.
You felt bad about how you reacted. You still feel bad.
Oh, okay.
Okay. How, first of all, were you able, just thumbs up, thumbs down, because we've got some time constraints here. Was that easy? Was that easy? Was it hard? In the middle? Were you surprised by the experience? Or are you surprised by your response? Okay, here's some questions. Just thinking in your own... Wait. You just press the button and you get like 90 slides.
Yeah.
We're done. Bye.
That happened.
No, because you press buttons.
Like a fast forward button or something.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Okay. So, just listen for a minute and think through your own process. How did you listen? Did you want in your mind, or could you not control yourself, and you did, make a connection?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Just in your own mind. How? Just reflect on your own process. I'm going to ask questions. If you're just in your mind reflecting on, okay, how did you listen? Did you listen to make a connection? Did you want to fix something? Did you listen and want to fix it? Did you want to ask clarifying questions? Was this process uncomfortable to listen? Was it comfortable? What was your body language? What was their body language in each role? Okay, talk out loud a little bit about that. And perhaps in this moment you can talk very much about it, but what I would also say is think about in the future, how does that impact the way in which you listen? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the fact that you gave us the instructions
Yeah.
made us very cognizant of what we needed to do. So I took those words and I said, just do it. And my first instinct is, sure, I know exactly her hand motions or what, and I said to myself in my brain, no emotion, no facial expressions, just more than 100% listen to that story.
Did you see things or hear things you might not have heard or seen as a result of really focusing on this kind of listening?
For me, to listen to Ronnie, no. No.
Because you know her so well.
Maybe that's one. Maybe if it was with somebody else, it would have been different, but I was totally in tune to listening to every word she said. And when I said it back, I think I missed a little component, a little bit.
Okay, other thoughts? Cindy?
Well, I think we both felt that it was very hard not to react to what we were saying. I mean, I think we don't know each other, although we just found out something very much as we have in common. But I think that without realizing it, we both talked about something that resonated for each other in a way. So it was I think we both felt it was very hard not to react. But I know that, so I guess it was easy for me to listen to your story, so I was really trying to think about how I was going to remember key points along the way. So that was kind of what I focused on, and not reacting, and really wanting to ask some questions about it afterwards.
Other thoughts? Yeah.
I also found it very hard not to react, because it's not the way I usually listen, and so I'm learning that I learned that in order to be a good listener, it is very important not to bring my own agenda to the table.
That's a really important point, because when I was going through this coaching certification program, they were videotaped, and my first feedback was that I had this bobblehead when I was listening. And I thought, that's so important to know, because I want to affirm the storyteller, but at the same time, do I need to do it in that way? It's too much gesture on my part. And then I began to realize that perhaps, as Beth was saying, was saying that we have such power in influencing what's being said, especially in our role of leader, is that someone's sharing something to us, and our gestures can shape the way in which a story is told or not. So our response as a listener is equally as powerful as one storyteller.
You also had to be very much in the present, not have anything else in your mind, because you had to focus on what the person was saying so that you could repeat it back. So whatever daydreaming or problems or what have you, completely had to leave.
And so think about yourself in that role. Are we doing a couple of things at the same time? Does this particular conversation warrant full on eye contact and still body? Does it require, let's sit down and talk about this. I really want to hear what you have to say. Is it, okay, I've got what you are saying. Is the proximity of body language? I mean, there's so much involved in the way in which we listen. I had a meeting with a boss who looked at his watch almost every 10 minutes. Do you know what that told me? I was so not important.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Are you saying this is how we should listen?
No, this is an actual extreme
of the
example of all that's involved in the process of listening.
So would you suggest, perhaps, what do you feel about taking notes as the person is talking so that you remember salient points you might want to share after?
Well, I think it depends on the content of the conversation. Realistically, most of your conversations you're not going to have a pad with you, or you're not really going to be. It perhaps is just logistics. And but for instance, the goal setting. I'm going to take notes. This is really important what we say here. I want to remember this. That's your discretion. I would not become the avid note taker during conversations. I think that is it's a distraction. That really, what does this person want to share with me right now? It's casual. They just want to tell. It's a joyful, informal moment. Is this a more formal moment that warrants sitting down and spending some time? Okay, talk to me. I'm really happy you came in. Let's share. That moment, I'm listening. You ultimately, whatever the circumstances are, you want your staff to believe that you really listen. And that would be conveyed in so many ways, whether your actions model whatever was said, your response conveys that you actually picked up salient details. You're not going to remember everything. Look at the content in just 2.5 minutes. But what are the salient details? I mean, where did that face light up that you know you've got to go back to? Where did suddenly the concern coming in. That's what I'm listening for. Half the time, if not 75% of the time, it's the subtext. It's what's not said. And they're swimming around in something up here, and you're like, I'm listening enough to know perhaps it's something that's not even being discussed yet. Yeah.
So like with the physical affirmations, like I noticed like that was really difficult for me to not do the bobbleheading. I do a lot of that too. And do you recommend not doing that? I mean, I think that sometimes people sort of look for that to see that you're listening and that you're following your points. I say not to do this.
It's entirely personal, it's stylistic. All I'd say is be aware, video your self, or have someone observe you if you don't know. Like when I am listening now, I really try to control this. At the same time, I want to affirm that I'm engaged with you and that I really care about what you're saying. So how can I do that? You know, is it my posturing? Is it a slight smile? Is it a warmth? Is it the way I respond? So just be aware of how you listen. Are you approachable? Do you listen as though you have an open mind? What do you give back? When do you give back? Here are the questions. Do you try to make a connection right away? Likely the person doesn't necessarily, your staff, want you to make a connection. They might. Most of the time people just want to be heard. They just want to be heard. Give the space to say what you've got to say. I care, I hear. Okay, let's think about whatever the response is. Wait a minute. Do you try to fix it in the moment? Which is a real habit in the world of education and teachers. Is that really going to take care of it, to fix it? Sure. The light's out, electricity problem, functional stuff, sure, fixed. You need to fix an emotion right then and there? No. But by listening to the emotion, that's getting closer to helping it move forward. So the fixing. Do you disagree? Sure. If you disagree, how are you going to share that? And when? Do you give them time to share out and then begin to build? Let me think more about what was just said. My children always say, when you say that, Mom, that means no. I'm like, you're so right. Like, no, actually, I won't consider it, but I think I know what you said. Do you want to ask clarifying questions? Usually, you want to be as clear as you can around a conversation that has some stuff to it. Yeah.
You mentioned, and I think it's so true, the location piece. Like I could sit behind my desk, or I could walk around my desk, and there are two great cabinets.
Yep.
And I'm very cognizant of where I want to sit when I'm having whatever conversation is. Sometimes, you want to be over there, and it makes it a little less formal, and it doesn't set up that hierarchy. But sometimes I kind of want that hierarchy, and I stay at my desk.
Discretion.
Setting is really important.
What is this? What is this warrant? What am I hearing? Tone of voice is really important. Okay, I sense that we're going to need to come together, sit down, and discuss. Or this one's quick. I can continue to type. But does your office space provide opportunity for those different kinds of conversations? Yeah.
Is it okay to ask clarifying? I mean, you said
Absolutely.
clarifying questions, so
No.
I sometimes have to stop and I say, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just have to clarify. Is that okay?
Yeah. Tell me more about, on the backside, tell me more about that part. I'm not sure I fully understand. I want to make sure I do. Or in the moment, can we just hit pause for a minute? Is that okay? Because I'm not sure right
Because sometimes
now.
I feel like I'm stopping them, but I need to because I just,
So you
have to clarify. Okay.
Can we hit pause for a minute? Who's they?
Okay.
Oh, you mean the teachers, not the children. Okay. Yeah, because otherwise,
Yeah.
if it's a key clarification, yeah. Okay, we're going to move forward a little bit. Things to consider when planning meetings and the role that you play. So this active listening. If you model this active listening, there's a good chance that your team is going to begin to do the same. You talk out loud about the active listening. You do this exercise with them. The power of that. And that's a norm here. And you do it early on. Then that, to me, says you really believe this is important. And this is a way of being together. This is a mindset. You can frame it as, this is really important for you in the classroom. How are you listening to the children? That's always the safest place to go. And that actually is exactly how we need to listen to each other here in these meetings. And that's our norm. I have full confidence we are going to evolve into great listeners. Whatever place you are on the continuum. Your agenda setting we'll talk about later, but make it relevant, make it timely. Don't let it go into places you didn't intend to go. What you want, because time is currency, you don't have a lot of time for meetings, but when you get everybody together, every minute is so precious. So how do you maximize on that? You are in charge of those meetings for the most part. You are in charge of making certain it stays on task. That is your lovely role.
I have to say that Betsy must say time is your currency like a million times. And it's just so stuck in my head that I actually, when I gave the graduation speech to the parents, that phrase, I gave them that phrase because that just sticks in my head all the time.
Yeah. And time is fleeting for parents too.
Yes.
But it is, and when you get everyone together, why in your mind are you bringing them together? And if you don't have a reason, don't have a meeting. Just because it's on the calendar, figure out how else to use their time well. Because then they will begin to realize, this is of value for me. And I play a role in this. And ultimately, over time, you're going to get everybody engaged in those meetings, but you still need to make certain that it has a flow and that it is relevant to them. And if you can take off all the logistics and put it in an email or manage that in a separate meeting, you're doing yourself a huge favor. If you want to have these deep conversations around practice, you cannot typically mix the two. And those details and logistics are a really comfortable place to stay for teachers. And they complain endlessly about them, but it's easier because you just get told this is how it's going to be and this is how, at this time. And logistics. But if you want to move into your practice and talking about the goal, the cycle, intentional learning, you're at a whole other level of discussion. So my suggestion, if you have the luxury to take those and separate them, I used to try to do those in emails or in person as much as I could. I could not stand the nuts and bolts, I call them. So they're important, you've got to do them, but how? So think about how you structure your meetings. Perhaps if you can't find another way and you have 2 meetings a month, maybe you have them, do you have them weekly? Hopefully. Let's say you have them weekly. That's great. A weekly full team meeting is great. I might alternate and do 1 week of the detail, and that would be a shorter meeting because who could sit for an hour and a half about that or whatever hour? What are your meetings typically? It's a long time for details. Or I don't know. That's where we can think about agenda setting. But don't let them bleed into the other because it's just a different kind of thinking, different side of the brain that influences the level of participation and the depth in which you can go. Location. Think about where you're holding your meetings. Are they always in the same place? Is it a neutral space where everyone feels part of it? Is it inside classrooms? Does that affect the conversation? Does it influence the conversation? Can you take it outside if you're talking about nature? If you're talking about, or if you want a certain feeling, where can you go with your meetings? How do they feel? Do they have personality? Do they have a personalization? Why would I be excited to come to a meeting? What would I want to see or taste or touch or hear? Do they enter when there's music? What of the environment can influence the way in which your meeting can feel interesting? You know, when you walk into a space and you're like, connect at some level with something sensory.
I think you're good at sort of creating that ambience I don't know if anybody else does this, so I just have to say it. Sometimes I feel like it's so hard just for me to get the meeting agenda going and to think of all of these layers on top of it. It's just
What
like
if
a
you
lot of work.
Delegate. What if you talk about the importance of the environment? That you believe that it adds to the value of the meeting. And you delegate, everybody take on a meeting. Bring something. Bring a flower. Bring a piece of food.
Bring the what?
Bad example.
Bring chocolate.
So one of the, I think one of the benefits, or one of the nice things that is a result of our weekly staff meeting, is that it's the only time the whole staff gets together. And it starts off social, because there's always leftover food. They have pizza in their room on Fridays, and so whatever pizza's left over, we have a food salad. We have a nursing mom. We have people who have backaches, so they're lying on the floor. So the setting already speaks of a casualness that sometimes isn't representative of the importance of that meeting.
So I might say that you have that social, and then you move into a more structured
And require
seating.
people,
Just even
the way you
this.
did this.
Just this. Could be.
Because that's
Sit
nice
up
and adds
and all come to the table.
So
So,
it's got, they're two different, they're such different feelings.
Yeah.
Yes, it's great to see you, let's share a birthday cake, let's.
yes, absolutely, I would
And then
say,
you,
for sure. So now let's come this way. The expectation, it may be norms, up to you. Laptops, how do you feel about that? Somebody's laptop is open, there is a barrier between them and everybody else. 2 rows. Like one of my norms is everyone has a front row seat. This is front row seat back here, this is front row seat here. Because you know where you chose to sit in a lecture or in a conversation if you didn't really want to participate. You were in the back, or you were near the door, right? So if you really believe everyone should participate, and you want active engagement, set up your environment so that it does so. I had a very small room that was dedicated only to faculty meetings, which was fantastic because the walls carried all of our conversations and thoughts from previous meetings. So there's a history of what we were doing for the year. Images of them, images of the children, all really, really about their practice. And the room was small enough, this one particular teacher always managed to wedge her chair behind everybody else. And so I'd always say, she know I was going to say, it's front row seat. That's no room. I go, yep, we'll make room. And we did not begin until
what about honoring
everyone.
the discomfort?
Okay,
If
yeah,
you will.
we're going to do something after this that honors that. But you, in the beginning, if your norm, we didn't say full participation. Did we?
You didn't.
Equity
It was
share.
equity.
A norm, okay, I might add, a participatory conversation. I don't know how you want to say that, but your expectation is that everybody, equity, yeah, but full, participatory meetings. That I would, in the front end, even perhaps do something with Susan King's work on quiet. And that she's talking about introverts versus extroverts. But the value, and that's, you go right to the teaching of the child. The way that we perhaps make assumptions or think about quieter children doesn't mean, like we saw in that video yesterday, that they know any less. So that's us here in this room. And that not all of us are extroverts and are going to charge out our thoughts. Some of us need time. So we're going to norm so that everyone participates, there's equity in voice, but there's also a participatory environment. So how, as a group, do we need to honor everybody's style and respect that? And then you might brainstorm. Well, we need to allow space. It can be quiet. We don't have to have these dynamic meetings all the time necessarily. We need to leave space, and we need to make it safe and comfortable for every temperament in this room to participate. How do we do that? Together. I would do that with everybody. Or at the beginning you say it's really important this happened, and then you notice it's not happening. So let's just take some time in this particular meeting to talk about how to help this happen more, because I'm observing that it's not. That's really important, because everybody in this room has important thoughts. Each of what you are thinking is really important that we hear. How can we make that comfortable with all of you right now? That's why it's important to me, not because of anything else that can be constructed, like that I don't want to hear from someone. It's that I value everything as you do, that we all have these thoughts, and together it's going to build out this idea that's going to move us forward. That's the underlying message. Say it out loud. The why.
Could you address, when you said everyone has a good thought, you said it before, and then it was a little grumbling over here, like, not all like yours.
That's what I just said. I was like, not
How does one, can you give us something that you would say to something that is really a very bad idea? For whatever reason. Or how
Stickers on flower pots.
Stickers on flower pots.
No, Betsy, or how, if you really don't believe,
Yeah.
if you really don't believe what that teacher says, like you really deep down. don't-
So your role as leader is to try to understand from where that's coming from, and then see if you can't somehow move to the points of view closer to center.
Can I give an example? This might be
Yeah.
a little okay.
Yeah.
We've taken to planning full school meetings together,
Yeah.
which sometimes presents the 20-minute meeting on soil as opposed to, right, which through this leadership we hope to overcome next year, right, and do it in smaller groups and have a small, well, whatever. While planning for a Tiber Shvat celebration, the birthday of the trees, one of the activities that the classroom did last year was planting with children. That took about 30 seconds, so a child made. So when planning this activity, they said, oh, we'll put stickers on the flower pots, but we should plan another activity because they finish so quickly, and we should have a second activity, as opposed to, oh, that's just a stupid activity in my head, right? Find something more meaningful to begin with, don't do a bad activity. And all of us are rolling our eyes, except people who are recommending this.
Okay, you have to value that person's idea just for saying it. And then, and again, the configuration, I don't know the dynamics, I don't know necessarily exactly how and when, but what does need to be shared, the better with everybody is, okay, what I'm thinking about with our effort on using natural materials, that perhaps stickers are not a material used in this particular exercise or in this activity. And that we work to, our challenge would be how to use natural material. I mean, go with me if I'm off here, but I'm trying to first address, I feel there's an attitude around stickers, right? Stickers would not be.
No, it was about a quick
It was like,
advice.
oh,
It was,
We'll do the 1, 2, 3, you'll plan.
it was not only let's put stickers on a flower pot, it was, we did this last year, so let's just do it again because we did it.
Okay.
So we're just gonna keep doing the same thing over and over, even though it didn't really work.
So there's a mindset
It was
around,
meaningful. It didn't.
there's a mindset you can begin to indoctrinate around just because we have doesn't mean we will continue to do. In fact, on this journey, we're going to try to really reshape everything we do just slightly to make it interesting for us. Because otherwise, it gets so mundane. All right, so we've done this already. All right, your challenge, I'd say, everyone's challenge in this room is to do something slightly different than they did last year. And perhaps this experience, as you plan it, needs to be at least 5 minutes. Get together with each other and brainstorm ways in which you can make this experience meaningful and slightly different that lasts about 5 minutes. Because we don't have time for a backup activity. This is the activity.
Do you find it advantageous? Sometimes when you hear the comment, whatever, I throw it back to the teachers and say, what do we think about that? In other words, not me.
You're setting them up.
That's how the 20-minute
You're setting those
conversation.
teachers up.
And they're not gonna
No, but
You
in
cannot.
other words, why do we always have to be the Wicked Witch of the West is my point.
Well,
Isn't it
but
more?
this is a
I'll tell you
judgment
why.
call.
Because they were
This
in
is
the
a
room, they
judgment.
wouldn't challenge, they didn't
Yeah.
want to challenge
No.
you.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
Well, it's not only that you don't want to challenge, but like, it's also not my job. It's not my job to say
It
like,
is
your
not-
idea is bad.
No, it's not your job.
Sorry, your idea is bad.
As leader, here's the deal. Wicked Witch of the West? No. It is a belief. If you can constantly go to the belief, the value, the goal, the mission, the cycle, whatever it
It's
is,
such a good thing. They
That
love
is
playing with
not-
sand, they love stickers, they did it before. It's such a good activity. I know
Great.
they're going to love it.
that's so true. But in this case, we are focused on the natural material and the process of planting that's going to give the child a single experience for 5 minutes. Then you may share with her afterwards.
Yes.
But this idea of why always us is a huge challenge in leadership. And first of all, it's not always your voice. Well, it is your voice. Often it should be less and less. It's really more about an ideal, or a vision, or a mission, or a principle, or about young children. And that's where it's not Ronnie saying again, da da da.
How about it's disrespecting your daughter?
It's like I want to go back to our site or our project goal, honoring the child. In this case, I'm not feeling we're honoring the child in the way in which we could potentially. Place your goal, your vision everywhere. Place it. And then all you're doing is redirecting. But don't set your teachers up to comment on each other, especially when it is a bad idea. Or an unproductive idea. You'll have to think about how to move bad into another place.
I think another way, we kind of had this happen in our school this year with one teacher in particular, and one of the things that I finally said was, I talked about the parents and how we're trying to help parents understand what our goals are and what we're doing, that if we continue to send things home to the parents that are done in this way that, that we're giving the wrong message, that we're not, and then parents are going to expect something that is not what we are planning to try to, include them in and help them understand what the children are doing and that our goals are with the children. So I said that also because I just felt that at a certain point there was just something happening that we kept saying, I finally did just say, we can't do this anymore.
So you can use parents, you can also use children. And say, well, let me just think through an experience for me as a child of 4 years old, 1 minute versus 5 minutes. In our effort to extend their experience and deepen the potential of the moment, I need 4 minutes to touch the soil, to look at other people, to water the soil, to look at the seeds under a magnifying glass, put it in, to place it in a sunny window. That has more meaning for me than to drop a seed in soil and leave. Go to that.
Go to the what's it good for?
Honoring the child.
Yeah.
How are we honoring the child in a 1 minute versus a 4 minute experience?
It was the most dysfunctional.
And we all have those. We all have those. Okay, start on time, end on time. Mean what you say what you mean. Especially when it's about meetings. Okay, optimize communication. I mean, this could be a 2-day workshop. But just in this short slide, how are you messaging? Verbally, email, in person, by phone. What else? What are other ways we communicate? There's so many now.
WhatsApp, social media.
Social media, I don't know if on a professional environment you are.
I mean, I'm not, but people are.
Okay.
We've just been reached out to by another child to site that looks really good and we're investigating.
Yes, that Roz.
Yeah,
Remy.
Remy.
Are you kidding me? That Roz man?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. Always fine. So what I'm saying now mostly is how are you communicating with your teachers? Hopefully you're not communicating through social media when you want to convey there's a meeting tomorrow. Okay. If you are, this is a new thing, Don. Okay.
Some people definitely are.
But as a leader,
Yeah.
really?
People I know, they're at their school, there's like a closed Facebook group, and like they'll post on it like, tomorrow at the staff meeting, be prepared to, and there's like an agenda.
All right. Whatever your group is accustomed to. Make sure you're consistent. Make sure it's effective. That's an assumption. Everyone checks this page. Make sure they do. Make sure everybody has it set up equity from the start, and be clear about how you communicate and the ways in which you communicate.
Do you feel the agenda should always be pre-given?
It's up to you, and it's up to, I would say, not always, but there are some good reasons why. Some people love to do it on the front end, and if that's what you do, always do it, or explain that they won't always get it on the front end. Sometimes they will, depending on content. Be transparent about how you're going to deliver an agenda. I was still pulling together things and making them come together the way I wanted, so I never did that in advance. If I knew there was some concern around a specific topic, or I needed to front end a conversation with one or two or three, I did. Say, you know, we're talking about, certainly if someone was going to participate, they knew in advance, and we're ready. Okay, we've talked a lot about norms. Be transparent, we're talking a lot about what you say up front, about your own process, your own thinking. There's great value when their teachers feel like they understand how you got to the place you arrived. Great, great value. An example around an early childhood group, I was working with the role director, and I sat, of course, in admin meetings, and I saw assessment coming down our way. And we've done narratives and portfolio, and I knew there was a checklist coming our way.
For children or for teens?
For children, senior admin. We're talking, and I just knew we were going to, and I feel like a buffer between the teachers and senior admin, but I saw a checklist coming our way. So I went to the team and I said, you know, we're going to really talk about assessment. And my sense is that perhaps we might be asked to prepare a checklist, which I would like right now to tighten up our narrative and tighten up our portfolio process such that we can provide evidence for why a checklist isn't necessarily appropriate. Transparency. I would always front the meeting with our conversation today. Actually, here's the outcome. Not just like here's the outcome, but here's where I will make the decision. Do not bring people together and let them talk and know already that you are going to make a decision without their knowing, or you've already made it. It was tremendous credibility when that happens. So we're going to talk today about, because at the end of this meeting, I'm going to take all your information and actually make a decision. I'll let you know where I go with it. Or together by the end of this meeting, or at the end of this month, or at the end of this year, we need to come up with, and I really need your input. And that means you mean what you say. Trust is probably the numero uno, and how you do it is probably the most complicated. It's all about relationships. It's just all about relationships. The integrity, sincerity, reliability, consistency, commitment, the confidence from you to them, and the way you uphold that all together as a team. Do anything at the front end, do this as best you can. And be transparent about this. Because your work really can't move in a way that it will when there's trust.
So those are beautiful words. Those are great, but do you have suggestion and can you tell us some honed, wonderful ways to do that?
Well, we could brainstorm this, and I'm sure that this takes time, and all right, let's go to it. Integrity, we're touching on it. We're touching on it as we go without being asked direct, but the integrity of your work, the integrity of what you say, and why you say what you're saying. It's not about Ronnie, it's about our school, it's about all of us together, it's about children, honoring the child. There's integrity to the process in which you go. Are you fair? Are you consistent? That's really important. Sincerity, you know, are you authentic? Do you mean what you say? Your behaviors and actions model all this. Are you reliable? Do you do what you say? Are you late to the meeting? Are you unprepared? Did you not do all of what you said you'd do? And they count on you. Consistency, much the same. Can they expect you to do and say and behave the way that they think?
Is there inherent in the fact that you're the director, you're the boss, whatever it is, that there's an inherent lack of trust just because of your position? As much as you do all of this, at the end of the day, is there really genuine
Only
trust?
if you prove them wrong in these areas at some point. And temperaments are different. Maybe you only did it once, but still that's personal stuff from everybody. If it's consistent in a single area, but no, I don't think so. I think you have to work hard as a leader to gain trust. Once you gain it, you can sustain, you'll have it.
I think a big part of the trust piece too, like looking from the bottom up, it's always that transparency issue too. Like there are all of these things in transparency. Like one, the sign of someone who is in a leadership position who you like can inherently trust is someone who's like, look, this is the problem I've got right now. I'm dealing with it. I know it's a problem. I'm working on it, and like doesn't need to have all the answers all the time either. Like there's that humanness that we have to show with children too. Like I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna look it up and get back to you on it. And I think sometimes there's like it's not a trust so much, but there's like this like that you don't have to have all the answers either. Like even though it's your school, there's answers that you might not know, and like just acknowledging like, you know what, guys, this is a mess, and I'm gonna figure it out.
This is interesting, and Brene Brown did a TED Talk on being vulnerable. She's in social work. And I was part of an opening retreat, admin retreat, and the boss showed us this video and said, you know, let's really think about how we're all vulnerable amongst each other. There was no way I was going to be vulnerable around this particular admin team. I'd be chewed up and spit out. So you need to use discretion, right? So you've got to be careful. But to your point, there is something important about you appearing human. But you cannot cross that line that suddenly suggests you don't know what you're doing. And that's really scary, right? So there's real discretion about knowing your people, knowing your team, knowing your temperaments, and it's a really gray space, but it's really important to know it. Like, how much can I afford to say in this moment? Like, I'm not going to go into that meeting and say to the team, you know what, so-and-so on the admin level, he's gunning for checklists, and we're in deep problem, right? I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say, I'm sensing that perhaps this might come our way. I know it's coming our way, but I'm thinking it's coming our way. My response is, we got to get ourselves tightened up and here. So let's do it, because then I got to go out there and go to bat for this, right? So there's transparency enough that hopefully you're feeling safe and slightly informed, but I don't think it's appropriate for you to know exactly who's doing this, right? So there's discretion involved in the way in which you share your information that you know, because you'll always know more information, as you should. And just lost the thought that I had.
You're human.
And you're human. And you always, I lost my thought, right? Rather than faking it right now and moving on. So it's, but there was something you said, I will come back. Yes.
What about, you know, not crossing the line? So you want to certainly appear human, but also not crossing the line in terms of being, you can't be friends with, you can have warm relationships, and hopefully you do with all, you can't be.
So this is another conversation which we're not going to go into because we don't have time, but it is something to think about. Sorry?
Should I put in the parking lot?
You can put it in the parking lot. I'm not sure where to get to it, but what I say to you is think about what you mean. I've been in environments that say school is family. I don't use the word family because I think it's too confusing. Because I think there are different sets of expectations. We might be professionally and personally linked. What is that word for you? And then how do you uphold expectations around it? When you get too comfortable and too familial, you cannot do your work. Yeah.
Also speaking from the bottom up as a teacher, part of the trust is knowing that Randy has our back.
Yeah. How do you convey? You will gain tremendous trust if you can convey to your teachers you have their back. It doesn't mean they can slack.
No, I think
Just be clear, have clear expectations around what you hope can happen with them.
you know, I think it's very much a two-way street. So in order for a director to have the trust in their staff and to have their back, the staff also has to kick a lot of things back to the director. You know, they have to communicate. So there's a lot, I think a lot of it is built on communication.
And it's a two-way street, absolutely.
And to Katie's point, and I'm not sure this is where I was going, but did come back, is There's no harm in saying, you know, food for thought. Let me think on that. Don't have that answer for you right yet. Now, if you want to be perceived as consistent, you would get back to her to say, no, I've been thinking more about that. And actually, it's an interesting idea, we can't get to it. Or, blah, blah, blah. She feels valued, she feels heard. I didn't know at the time, I've thought more about it. That feels good, even if you don't have an answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes. Pressing comments right now. No? Sure? Commitment to is just put this together. Competent. There's a little bit of fake it till you make it in a moment, right? But not for too long.
Can you say that one more time?
Fake it till you make it. Competency. I mean, you know, hopefully you're competent, you feel competent and capable. But there are moments where you're moving into a new space because we should, and we're challenging ourselves. And you know, I've just moved into a new role, and you get into a new role and you go, well, wait a minute, and then you go, no, wait a minute, there's 30 years behind me. I can just pull it together and in the meantime present myself as, right? You've got that. You've got that. We all have life experience, and we all have educational experience. As we take on something that's a bit new or challenging, just bring some confidence to the table, but do your homework behind the scenes. You know, back it up. Okay, so supporting active participation. These are things you're going to be thinking about. We're not going to go too deep in them, but they're very important. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do it? We're going to walk through these right now, just for a minute. Shared leadership. I mean, supporting active participation is just front row seats. Front row seats right here. All of you are participating. Do you really feel like you can opt out? Right? But it's of value. We care. So it's worth my while. I would be transparent about that in the front and have that down here in norms. In this active participation, what does that mean? So perhaps your initial meetings consist a lot of deconstructing what these norms mean, and then reiterating the importance of them. So shared leadership. Your voice isn't always the voice in the meeting. We'll talk about this when we build out agendas. You've got an idea. You want to talk about intentional language as a cycle? You've got an idea. You want to talk about intentional language as a cycle? And you've built out what that means to everybody. And then you see something going on in the classroom that needs to be shared. Right? How do you get that to the whole staff meeting? Because that's the next place it should go. What you've got to be careful of is, she's the favorite. Or the judgment there. But over the course of the year, everyone's going to have a moment. That's part of your full participation. So you don't want that. It's coming your way at some point, and you do so many fabulous things. And if you're really having a hard time, I'll help you during that moment all together. But we're all going to get there.
It's no different than what we tell parents about the newsletters that we send them, our daily reflections. Your child can't be in it every single day, but we promise you that within the week that you'll have several.
Okay. Use these examples as often as you can, because what we do for children, we also do for ourselves. We have a mantra I would carry with me throughout. I know it's hard. We're going to grow together in this area of participation together. I know we're not used to it, but we are going to practice it. This is really important. Why? Because it's going to make us a phenomenal place. We already are, but we're going to go over the top. That's why. Not because you want to see people in uncomfortable places or you have whatever your agenda isn't. Okay. And I think this is lastly. How do you convey positive energy and have an optimistic outlook? Your styles may all be very different. And it doesn't come in the conventional, predictable role of an extrovert. How do you convey optimism and positivity? It could be in the messaging, your word choice. It could be in your expression. It could be in your presence. It could be a number of ways. When you are the cheerleader, you are the ambassador. You are the beam that's forging the way. Okay. So, we are going to take a break. And it's going to be, is 5 minutes, okay? How about 5? I did.
But we have a lot to cover.
See, I am not consistent. Here, reliable. Here, let me say one thing. Where are we? Where's my bell? Okay, here, 5-minute break.
When you're done, I want to leave little notes I want to share.
So that was sort of my thinking when I went there. It's like, when you do this, you know, and I worked in the field for like, I think what's this year. I don't know, so I did
Well, yeah, they're in the yes,
So therefore, we're another 4 year. Great place.
So you
Thank you. Where'd she move the cart?
Right here. And then, you know, it's like
Put it in here. I think we should leave the rest, no?
Oh, yeah.
Let's here, because we didn't order pastry for that. Exactly. So, which was a good small. Right. This I can like condense, but they also like things like and things like I think my but here's the thing. thing is that I've found just in
years ago, and
I don't want, can you just pass me some plate? So like, it's hard for people to split and like say to them like, okay, you have hours, not like you told the community this, but it's not enough. But they also don't understand that like it's beneficial for everyone. It seems like more. So anyway, it's kind of like you're thinking about it as like a job. Like for me, I don't care what I'm gonna do. I don't care. But like if you think about it as like everything, then I mean she's got to something. And there are different things that you gotta. It's more work. Okay,
right, and I was working in Seal.
So I ended up bringing a lot of cases. I didn't throw any group of children in front of me, and I was like, that's fun, like, we'll deal. But also, like, we would just go get to right now.
Is that for lunch? I know, right, a little bit sad for the children about
Yeah, really. Yeah, really.
Yeah, no, it actually really is.
Hopefully that gets into it.
Well, in the last one, we ran out of right? And I was not happy. Yeah, no, it's the worst when that happens.
It is. It's because I was so busy schmoozing. This time I made sure I said, I'm going to eat. Then I'm going to bed.
So we overdid it, maybe.
Okay.
In reaction.
You, good Jewish mother.
Right now, you're familiar with that open space, can that be closed?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When they come out of course.
Okay.
I'm starting to when they come quick.
And right now, this is,
Yeah, you got more than something. That's what you're going to
Okay. So, we've done a whole lot of things. And most importantly, today, this morning, we talked a lot about bringing individuals together. Oh, there. Look, it's moving.
Ah, there we go.
I can still hear you.
I don't think that's gonna be better right there because it's open.
So we, just to retrace our steps today, talked a lot about the importance of bringing individuals together as a collective whole. We then moved into the rehearsal, so to speak, of how to introduce what hopefully is on your first meeting around the importance of the LEAD project, the role of LEAD, history, and relevance and context for and your future and your cycle. So that seemed to be a pretty active conversation, and that's where we left off at lunch. We are now going to move into the content of a meeting and the setting of an agenda to begin, and then move into how your calendar affords these ideas and these meetings and actually putting them into place. And then in the final moments, depending on the time we have, we may open it up to some choice around in the last whatever minutes we have, how should we use time and make certain that things are addressed and closed out as best they can. Okay, sound all right? Okay, so thinking about the agenda and building the why, an understanding of the why behind the agenda. Remember we talked about it having relevance and context, so it has meaning. You've thought about why you're having this meeting and very clearly what you're going to do in this meeting. So it helps organize content for you, but also for the teachers coming to the meeting. Structures the time. You have a way on your agenda like you were given today and yesterday to see the time frame, and it frames the conversation. So if ever it goes off or begins to trail on, you can bring it back because your agenda says so. So there's a reason behind why this helps. You know your teachers' learning styles and personalities. Some people live and breathe by agendas and will follow it by the minute. Others could care less, let it be. But for you, as leader, knowing that you have really thought through the purpose of this meeting, that you know where you want to go, not sure of the outcome, but you know where you want to go, and you divided the time in this way because, and each action has a meaning and you understand why you're doing it. So we're going to set an agenda together to just talk through how you all think about what's involved in that process. One thing that came up in the rehearsal, one of the directors expressed a clear understanding around the importance of building in reflection time for herself in order to do all this thinking. And so we all know, well, you hit the ground running even before you open the front door into the school, and it's pretty much that kind of day. But where in the day, and it shouldn't have to be on your time at night, can you begin to build into your calendar time to plan agenda or reflection time around meeting? Value that time for you so that you can make the most sense of what's going on and optimize on the moment where you have everybody together. So whether you're somebody who can take 30 minutes and really make it happen, I don't know what you need, but perhaps consider building in time. And I wouldn't do it the day before.
Wait, I'm a little bit lost. You're building in time to reflect
Yeah.
on what the meeting's going to be or after the meeting?
No, the content of the meeting.
Oh, on the content of the
Okay?
meeting.
And it may
Yeah,
take you 5 minutes. It may take you half an hour. You're not sure. Allow time on the front end, though, because you may ask someone to participate, and they need additional time to prepare. We were talking in one of the group meetings around presenting the idea around project lead and your cycle. And instrumental to, or integral to the conversation from the director was the fact that the second tier, whatever you want to call that position, the lead teacher, was here. Acknowledge that person was here. Not necessarily the time for that person to speak, but that you've acknowledged they were here. You look forward to hearing from them in upcoming meetings. Now, that person who's going to present in an upcoming meeting needs time on the front end. Okay, we've got a meeting in 1 week, 2 weeks. Really want you to share out your feeling, your experience here, and what it meant to you. And I'm happy to work with you on that, blah, blah, blah. But ample notice if you're going to be distributed leadership minded, which you should be. So the importance of the agenda in advance and giving yourself time to make sure it is relevant. And just go back. Does it have meaning? Do we really have to do this particular piece I just put down? Can it be 15 minutes instead of 30 minutes? Does it actually need the full hour and a half? And I'm shortchanging it? Okay. So Brian and I are going to collaborate. And one of us is typing or no?
Miriam's
Oh,
gonna
good.
type.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so that's it. I created a framework template for setting an agenda. This is so personal, you will do it. every which way you want. This is just for us to work together here and now. It can become anything you want. So, have a look at the front and the back, and then together we are going to fill in the blanks based on this initial meeting, the first meeting when you have everyone together. Okay, so topic. What's the topic?
Introducing Project Leap. Are we going back to the?
Well, is that going to be all you do?
Welcome back.
No, setting vision.
Okay, hold on. You're going to see that we get down into more detail. This is perhaps topic. I think if it were myself and Brennan, you're going to participate anytime you want. First full staff meeting is going to be in that heading for me to identify when this is happening. And it could be that depending on your topic, is it solely, are you going to spend your time, depending on what you have, this is a question, there's no judgment here, on introducing this idea of Project Leap? Think about it. If not, it's definitely your welcome back. That's a topic you've given. The first time you've had them all together, they've been away for a long time, summer. So welcome back, first staff meeting. I don't know if you want to label it Project Leap. The date in which that happens, you will know. You'll probably put that on the calendar sooner or later, maybe today. That's going to be specific to your calendar. The time dedicated. Be thinking, are you going to truncate, you want to bring them back together and welcome, of course. Is there a shared experience? There's so much research around in the first, I think it's the first 10 to 15 minutes of a group meeting. If you do not speak, the chances that you are participating in speaking go down radically, right? Or increase up, excuse me. So, if I don't participate in the first 10 or 15, the likelihood of my participating will be, yes, thank you. I'm close to hell. Way down to a point where I'm not going to participate. Or however, I'm not going to participate. Or I might whisper something. So that said, is there an opportunity to bring everybody together? We're still in the details of how you're thinking about this meeting. Just who's there? Okay, participants. In this case, it's your full staff rather than your 2-3s teachers or your part-time teachers. This is your full staff.
I don't know if anybody thinks about this, but very often at that first meeting I have either the president of the synagogue come as a welcome back, sometimes the clergy, so I don't know if that's, something people think about.
I also tried to set a tone, since we're a Jewish nursery school, of starting a meeting with a Dvar Torah, words of Torah, short.
Okay, content, we're getting there. Save that.
Oh, you're not up to that yet.
So to participants, who's there, full staff, and Randy says perhaps someone in the synagogue.
That's interesting, really, because in Bethel, we have this as a nursery school, and then we are part of the whole entire, we have a meeting with the whole entire synagogue. All the lay leaders, the rabbi, the maintenance, yes.
Wow. In September, like as a welcome back?
Yeah, as a welcome back, so it's all of us together.
Phenomenal.
Everybody.
And how much time are you all together?
A long time. Because it's, there's, a lot of it goes to team building, and there's usually an activity we've broken up into groups.
Okay, so this meeting that we're talking about now feels different.
Definitely.
So Randy, you're the person you identified would come, welcome, and then leave?
Yes,
Okay.
right.
That's interesting.
Okay. Okay, so setup needs, think that through. You know, in order to come here today, I'm thinking about the handouts, I'm thinking about the PowerPoint, I'm thinking about chocolate,
Breakfast.
I'm thinking about the food for sure. I'm thinking about the tablecloth. What's the tone? Is there something at their seat when they arrive? How am I greeting them?
By the way, I saw a really nice idea at a meeting that I was at, which is taking the little small water bottles, you know, the little small ones, and putting the carnation in as your flower, and then they actually tie the tag, and in this one, the tag said "Keep Wondering." And it was so simple, but it beautified it and had a message. And actually, I took it home, and then they kept the lid there. So to travel with it, I just put the lid back on, but when I got home, it's like that lasted for like 2
Where did
weeks.
they do that?
At the Reggio, at New
in the
Jersey.
church?
In the New Jersey, yeah.
Oh, because
No,
Gula did that at our last.
she did. I haven't done it yet. She was at that meeting. Right.
Right.
I just thought it was a
But
really simple idea.
that is a personalization. It's a message that you care about them. It is natural. There is a way of thinking in that little tag. You could have their names somewhere that go the distance.
So what Ronnie does, I'm sharing this, and it's been, I would say, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, at the beginning of the opening, we, as a staff, we get something. We've gotten aprons with Bethel's logo. We've gotten sweatshirts that say Laura Judy on it. So either the nursery school and the whole school, they really look at us as being part of the community, and Ronnie really pushes to do that for us. And that definitely sets a very special extra tone besides everything else. Raincoats, rain boots.
So a unifying gesture, gesture that you belong to this community. What does that look like? Could be in the form of clothing. It could be the form of an image. You talk a lot about the word journey. Maybe there is a common theme, and it's about the journey, and everybody gets something to do with the journey. You give them a compass. There's just so many ways to build off of what's the theme.
What she said. A roadmap to Italy.
A roadmap.
That's a pretty good one.
To somewhere. Or not.
We were thinking about doing something maybe with the stone or something else that we write intentional, there's intentional language printed on it,
Yep.
since there's our
So it
cycle.
ties into your cycle.
Everybody gets, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know, I think all stones on my desk are really on the cycle.
But you could go a lot of places. Be thinking though, because your gathering and your setup needs will require some time. It shouldn't necessarily require money. You can be resourceful.
Go to your materials
I
class.
was gonna say the stones as well, I love that, like the closing too, it doesn't always have to be the opening, but the closing, right? Maybe the teachers could write something on the stones, throw it in, like throw a pile of ideas.
And then those are shared throughout the year. You know, there it is. Maybe different words go on at different times throughout the year. You know, how do you build on and create a sense of belonging, a voice. Okay, materials require some thought in advance. And again, you don't have to do this alone. I mean, if you've got somebody working alongside you, share this. I was the worst to work with because I would be thinking of meetings, and the woman with whom I worked closely, she'd go, I am not setting that table until the 11th hour because you're not going to like the yellow I put down because you're going to say the mood is a little brighter, or it's going to be a little, and together, I needed help supporting. We brainstorm and we generate ideas and give each other cues of who needed what. But the touches that you take for these teachers in this setting mean a lot, and it will be modeled in the classroom. and with each other. It's worth the time. Don't go crazy over it though. Okay, and location, really think through. I've got a lot of people. This is a full staff. Where do I want it? It's an opener. We're talking all about outdoor environments. We're going to at least start in the garden space that Randy has and Kathy has. That amazing space. We're going to spend the first 15 minutes there doing our welcome back, and then we're going to move in. Could look any which way you want.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What if you don't have so many choices? Not every school
Absolutely.
has space choices.
And I have been there.
We're a city school,
Yeah.
I'm in Queens, and
Yeah.
we don't have
So
a
you
lot of
have, if
spaces.
you have a space where
They're
everybody
far from
fits,
beautiful.
first of all, do you have a space where everyone fits?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it a neutral space or is it a classroom?
Well, it depends if it's being used, I'm part of a synagogue, so
Yeah.
it depends. One of the rooms that they give us doesn't have air conditioning, so that's out in the summer months, or when we come back to school, it broke and they have not fixed it, and I will refuse to do a meeting there. We don't want to swelter.
That's right.
So that's out. There is a ballroom, which is prettier, but it's huge. And it's just it's too big. To me, it's not small and intimate and warm, and the feeling isn't good. So that really leaves us to a classroom. It could be an empty classroom, but it's not like it's beautiful.
So what I would be challenged to do is try to make that a portion of the ballroom appropriate for a meeting and figure out how to create a smaller space within it.
Maybe just put divide, like just around an area, but
Yeah.
because it's big,
Yeah.
even the small
And then
space is
you
very
can
big.
simply take something like this to define a space and whatever else you do to make it personable. But, yeah, there's no reason you cannot work with that large space to make it smaller. I don't know if it's a pain to get chairs in and out of it, but,
No, that's not my problem, that's the custodian's problem.
yeah. And if you've got dividers,
They probably have.
and then you just
They
think
just
about.
put it around your area?
You can also use easels.
No. It's way too
Well,
big.
what can warm it up a little bit is, perhaps you bring in flowers and you bring in a piece of fabric.
Will you bring them a carpet from one of the classrooms, like a circle rug or something?
A rug is really extraordinary. I'd like to do a whole research project on rugs. When I moved into a new space, it was a big open space, and we hadn't quite arranged the material. It was Reggio inspired, so very open classrooms, all had windows that fronted what we called the piazza. And there was nothing in the piazza yet. We had a plan, but things weren't in there yet. We did put in a round circle rug, and I'm telling you, everyone who walked in that space walked to the rug and stood there. And so for me, it's a grounding, it's a point of orientation. So if you go into a big space like that, ground everybody. So chairs will do that, but then even more warm it up. If you
Is
have-
that why you have that in the middle?
Yeah, and if what I would do is make it as much about those who are at the meeting as possible. Okay.
And don't make yourself crazy. Rugs are heavy.
Yeah, it's just light.
It's a lot lighter.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
or a mat.
I don't feel like
If you guys just kind of the setup, would you do the setup?
I probably would, but I'd make it, really transportable and easy. Like what might change are the flowers or the tea glass or what's in the wooden
It
bowl.
could be interesting to do something related to the agenda.
Absolutely, right? But again, as Brian said, don't kill yourself. So that's very easy. I'd go outside or around the corner and get anything that's living, herbs, something, a bush. I don't know. I'd put anything. This may be seasonal or related to your meeting, and that could be anything they can eat. The rest of it would be simple. I could put it in a small box and bring it to every meeting and unpack it in 30 seconds. What I'd have to anticipate is what changes. Okay, so are we good with the sort of pre-thinking? We've previewed the meeting. Okay, so now let's move into content and how it's actually going to unfold. And so remember, your focus is, your topic is what?
Honoring the child.
Welcome back.
Oh, well.
Project
Not
lead.
an honoring the child yet. We're project lead.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Cycle.
Cycle will be part of Project Lead. Okay, all right, so we're gonna welcome. What's really important to think about when you welcome people back, especially the first meeting since the summer.
What they think.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, so introductions and maybe a small moment of sharing.
Or an icebreaker.
So an icebreaker could be before or after you're sharing, but you really want to welcome and identify who's at the table. So you're going to be thinking about, do they all know each other by name, or do you want to help out the situation in the beginning? So is there a piece of paper they could create, design, and write their name that folds over and is in front of them in this kind of configuration? Or a name tag just for the beginning, because names are really important. We don't know each other yet. If you just gauge where everybody is on that. Where are you when everybody arrives?
At the door.
I mean, ideally, if you can greet at the threshold of the entry point, that is so powerful. Welcome, glad you're here. Say their name. I used to be at a very
Reading something in a whole room, but if it was on, a more calm and casual way, they might feel more apt.
So how then would you bring those voices to life? Here's a question I'd ask myself. That what will I do with this? Because it holds so much. There's such value. Now what? Yes, I know.
I mean, I think that this is something that you bring to, like, if you were to hang with us in some office, teachers could prepare for it, bring it in, and maybe before the meeting, part of your agenda could take out some one or two of those points to discuss. You could sort of practice with, just a few points at a time, and so people feel heard.
Would you, I mean, if you put it in my office, obviously I don't know what your office is like, but if you put it in my, I don't know that I'd want the parents
So
to see it.
that's this question. Where does this belong? Where is there a space in your current site that holds room for the teacher's words? You need to find one. Whether it's a storage closet that's somewhat greeting and welcoming, whether it's a conference room, a coffee pot where they go. Is there a place? If there's no place, then it does need to be itinerant and you roll it out and bring it with you.
I was gonna say, like, maybe, you begin, and as we have our staff meetings, or as we have meetings, we add, I mean, this could be a process, could be fiber, June.
The idea.
Because I think things will change.
If an exercise like this can be the model for our evolution of our thinking and our growth and development, like a portfolio for children, a journey binder for children, that where is the evidence of our thinking? How are we doing it together and placing value? This needs to have a next something though. Or on the front end, or after the experience like I'm doing now, I would clarify around the intention of this. It's going to be hanging somewhere, add to it. This is really important. I'm going to go through and take in and try to filter and organize common themes and bring it to our next meeting as a way to begin conversation. So it can go a whole lot of ways. Yes?
I love the words you chose to use, as opposed to what worked, what didn't work, or successes and failures, that you use successes and challenges. I think that already framed this in a positive growth mind.
So think about word choice.
Word choice.
And if you know this, here, on this table, they're equal. It's not like everybody went to the failures, like, the challenges or the, right?
And I would identify, if suddenly there were no successes, I'd say, how? I would say, we don't. And in fact, why aren't there more successes? That tells us something. We need to spend more time on talking about what we do well.
Right.
Right.
It also might be really beneficial to type up all the responses and just as people can look at it in this way, like I'm just thinking of people who this works for me because I'm very visual, but some people like maybe a list would be helpful for them to.
Okay, ask them.
Yeah.
Ask them.
What's going to
What
work
would
for
you
you?
like? What would you like? Some people might like it just to sit right there. Some people might like to see it in a list. You've got so many different temperaments, personalities, learning styles.
I was thinking that just the process of doing it has value.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't come to a next step or use it for another.
And you could just leave this as, how did it feel to be quiet? How did it feel to participate in this way? And I might do this on the front end when I want to share the importance of everyone's ideas and how they were flushed out here so freely for the most part. And I'm not certain everyone agreed with that, but if that was the case, and how difficult it can become when we sit face to face in this other space talking about our ideas. You can leave, you can, wherever you go with this. This is, and we're gonna move forward here. This is a protocol from SRI, School Reform Initiative, fabulous website, great protocols for all different kinds of things. Not about you, it's about a protocol. It's a way of engaging and moving conversation. This is a great resource. This is the Chalk Talk, the rationale behind it, how you might use it. I'm going to pass this out on our way back in. Yes?
I was just going to say that if our goal is intentional language, then it's really interesting to see like how we're able to compile it, as I say, to the teachers that think about how much we talk to them about talking at the children some of the time that what is able to happen when we have this space and this freedom to just think and express.
As much as you can bring back to their practice in the classroom. So that's what we're doing. And this idea that intentional language, perhaps this is a ritual you build into every staff meeting. You can go any which way you want with this.
You know, when we came to one of the meetings, I brought it back from someplace, I'm not sure where, wait, why am I talking? And from Paradigm, and I brought it to my teachers, and I always, 99% of the time I have a staff meeting. If I have staff development or they have staff development, the next morning we will have a staff meeting. Because I think while it's fresh in everybody's mind, you like to talk about it and share, and but I brought that, and some of the teachers have really taken to it. So when you say, and other teachers, I've heard other people tell teachers, why? Just wait. Why am I keep on thinking? And it's very hard, especially the teachers who are really, I have a lot of older teachers who are used to frontal teaching. And it's so hard for them. They feel like if they're not talking, they're not teaching.
So this is self-awareness. This is feeds right into both site goals around intentional language, around deeper curriculum, emergent curriculum. You cannot find deeper emergent curriculum if you're doing all the talking. Really, instead of talking, it's listening. So on that note, we're going to go right back to our, actually you want to sit at the tables for this next segment.
I think that it's great. From the paradigm. That's what she said you took back from. Because we were so distracted by each other that nobody could even play successfully.
So this last segment before lunch is going to be rehearsal time. You're practicing introducing gonna practice introducing
It's like open the box.
your spiel, your intro in the first staff meeting around project lead and your site goal. Okay. Project lead and site goal.
Okay, I feel like I totally know. What do you mean by cycle?
Site goal.
Cycle, I thought you said cycle, I'm thinking I missed something.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I drop syllables or just clarify.
Now, that's been talking for 3 days straight, or 2 days straight.
Which is really not good. Okay. I'll leave this.
I have one for that, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna start again with that. That right now, between now, next 30 minutes, we're gonna spend 15 minutes rehearsing how we might present our thinking around the project lead work that you've been doing, past, last year, this summer, professional development, and moving forward, and introducing this idea that you have a site goal. And what is it? Okay? You're going to introduce this. You're going to be succinct. You're going to be clear. You're going to be compelling. You're going to be slightly persuasive in that they all want to get on board, because this is really an amazing opportunity, which it is. This is great for children because honoring the child is what it's all about. And I'm really excited to work with all of you on this. That's the essence of your conversation. That probably shouldn't take, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. What are you thinking? 5? You're really succinct then. Yes.
In sharing the site goal,
Yeah, a little bit.
how does one share the site goal without coming, or maybe you have to come across, I'm kind of thinking out loud and letting you listen, that we determine the site goal. They haven't been a part of that conversation.
Would it be most useful for us to do this all together?
Yes. Yeah.
Not pairing, small
Yes,
groups?
yes.
All together, okay. All right, let's do it all together. I want to make sure it has relevance, okay? So I am not going to be the director. I'm going to be in the teacher role. I'll participate. So we can do it in a number of ways. We can have somebody go for it, like we did here with Kathy, who was the brave warrior, taking that risk. We can do that. Or you have some ideas I'm willing to work with. And I could, perhaps maybe my role would be coach to the director. Okay. And then we'd have people listening and perhaps, I don't know, what works best for you all in your
Could you
needs?
give us the keep the bullet points again? Why would the cycle?
Let's do that.
Literally seminars, share.
We're going to do this all together. What, I'm going to ask you, what is important? What do you need to do? You are, okay, this is your first staff meeting. You've got to light a fire. What?
Establish norms. That's my first one.
You're going to do that in this meeting.
Right.
Okay? We'll agenda this later, but what in this first meeting? In what order is later? The conversation. Okay.
I mean, I think the teachers, I'm a teacher, so I was here yesterday, really
Single conversation.
I haven't
Put a
had,
little louder.
sure, I haven't had so much, I'm a teacher in the school, so I haven't really had so much information about how we got to Project Lead, and I haven't had so much of the background information, and when Sarah explained some of that to me, I became more interested in what was happening, and you feel more invested in the program and in your environment too, in your school. So I think that just giving a little bit of background history and why we're doing it.
Absolutely. So, based on what you have already said or haven't said, add this to your list of criteria for this conversation. history around Project Lead. And perhaps there's going to be a definition or a summary of content that you can reference or read that comes from Bryna or somewhere, because I know that was discussed yesterday. If there is documentation available, use it. So, okay, history behind how did it evolve? If you don't know, you should know. Find out. What is the intention behind it? What's the hope for Project Lead's work? Why did you agree to participate? This was an opt-in. That says a lot about you. And it says a lot about your confidence in your staff. So already they're feeling like you value them because you believe that they can do this work. Well, what work are they doing? What else needs to be part of this? If we're on a timeline, so that's the history. Over the summer, here's what we did to move the work forward. We met 3 times. In that period, we established a goal that was relevant to our site. Or go back a little bit more and say we brainstormed our values. Bryna, what was the question that we did on June 1? The two, you and I broke up into 2 groups.
What does excellence look like?
Okay. Well, share that, show that. Does anyone have documentation of that? Do you have a slide, a picture? Or your own? I might, if I had the capacity, I might say, really interesting for you to see our brainstorming. And who's our? Who's in this cohort? Oh, it's directors from these many regions, or collectively we are. Okay, and we were asked to brainstorm excellence in early childhood education. This question, if you have a picture of that, or can get a picture of that, that I would share that and show them the work that was done. Because you're going to ask them to do the same thing. But you've done this yourself. There's great value in that. What was the second question?
The excellence.
I thought there was one.
Oh.
I'll look back in your.
We split it into 2 groups.
But it was the
But it
same.
was one same question in both groups, right?
And I would say, and then once we brainstormed, we were left with what you were seeing. We had to distill this down to 2 important choices, all under the umbrella of honoring the child. So honoring the child became, we could choose from the project, asked us to choose our goal that was most relevant to our site. And we chose from intentional language or deeper immersion curriculum, or however your variation looks. Okay, you're modeling right now that you are part of a process you're going to ask them to be part of throughout the year. That you were faced with making a challenge, but you did it based on the site needs. And that had, and when I was thinking about our work together, not my decision, based on our work together, where I think we are, this is the rationale for why I chose intentional language. So if I'm listening, I'm a teacher, I'm like, okay, at least there's transparency around this process, I get it. I probably would have hoped we'd gone with deeper immersion, but we went with intentional language, and I'm going to get on board because that's my role. But now I know why, and now I know from where this is all coming. Now I say, so we've selected deep or intentional language. Here's how I see it moving forward. And here's how I need your help in shaping that vision. So you're conveying that you have a vision because you need to have one. People are counting on you for that. But they also want to know they can participate in that vision. And that it isn't just going to be doled out to them in increments that have to do with you. So So there's some flexibility within the way that begins to look. That can only be shaped with their participation. I might hit pause right there and say, how are people thinking? Or I might say, I champion this. And I'd say, I'm really, and this wouldn't be the first time I do it, I might begin with, I'm really excited to share the piece about Project Lean. Here's one. It energizes me to think that we have the opportunity to build out this work together. This really is a way in which to utilize the new meeting schedule we have. I'm so glad we have time. There's so much to think about. That your work every day supports is going to help us better understand what is intentional language. So you're championing this authentically throughout this introduction. Then you hit pause, and so really interested to hear what everybody's thinking. And then really cultivate full participation voices. I would not necessarily feel compelled to go around the circle and have everybody talk. As it is, what's everybody thinking? How does this feel? You're asking this to your teachers in that time. I know, I can imagine. Right. But so you've delivered what we just talked about, and now you want to bring in their voices.
Could I just ask you?
Yeah.
My teachers already are they know this because we worked all year and we had a coach and they're part of it. So this part they know. But do you really feel that everything is a choice? Like, how do you feel? Like, what if a teacher gets up and says, well, I don't feel we should be participating in this? But that wasn't a choice that I gave them.
That's a non-negotiable. You know, what's considered for non-negotiable? I say it all the time, and I'll start with it. Here's the non-negotiable. Here's where we have flex.
Because I feel like as a director, I chose to do this, and we're doing this.
Exactly.
Of course I want buy-in, and we're already past this. So, but I just want to know how much choice.
I hope you can get on board because we're going.
Right, that's what I told them in June. I said, we're already there, so either join us. I would love to have you join us, but if you can't,
I'm not trying to say it there, as I would say, I can see that this is hard for you. Let's talk after the meeting.
But it was hard for a lot of them. No, because I wanted to make sure they had the commitment of time. I told them, I laid out exactly how we're changing for next year, and I said, I would love everybody, I think everybody has strengths and everybody brings different things to the table, and I love it. But I certainly understand if you can't commit this time, this is what is going to be required. And if you can't commit this time, I do understand. I'm sorry that if you choose not to come with us on this journey, but...
What does that mean? Don't sign the contract?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then everyone's signed and they're in.
Right.
So let's go.
Okay, no. That's so easy.
Okay, so,
but I just wanted to validate, everything isn't a choice. There are non-negotiables.
no, this is, and you probably have already said that or not, and if you haven't, you need to make that clear.
Okay.
As a site, you have signed on to this.
Okay.
And if you haven't said that, this initial delivery is going to be the rationale for why you value this for everyone, not just you. This isn't about you. You are in a position to consider this opportunity. It is an opportunity, I would use that word, to grow, to be part of a greater whole on behalf of honoring the child.
Or honoring a child is part of our mission/vision. Like, in other words, we came up with our mission/vision. That's printed. They choose to look at it. It's above where they sign in every single day. It's stuff that we revisit, and I feel like a lot of this just goes back to what we all sort of agreed on. That
So have these statements around you so that you can say, Honoring the child, intentional language, remember, that's why. Vision for the school, that's why. Just keep lifting it up and moving it to the greater good of this conversation, not the voice piece director.
I just have a question, not to seem insensitive at all, but so what's the goal in this particular situation for asking how they feel? Once you've already decided.
Well, okay, maybe not how you feel about this, as there's a different question. What would you ask? You want voice. The goal is to get participation and energy around the idea.
How does
Really
it
kind of
sound?
taking a pulse. So what do you want to say that gets...
Any ideas?
Any ideas? How does it sound?
You said you're
But what if it says it sounds bad?
Yeah.
Right? So frame your
Or what,
question.
or it sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
It is.
It is a
We've
lot.
got one. What might that look like?
in your classroom.
Yeah, what might that look like? Don't force them to do too much thinking right away.
Right. You're not asking them to pass judgment on this decision. The
That's right.
decision is made.
That's right.
You're just asking them for, ideas and feelings moving
And they
forward.
may not be ready to give you ideas, but you just want it in. You want to know we're in. How are you going to get that from this group?
Right, and I also feel, that's the way you're presenting it, it's not Ronnie, it's Ronnie sharing, it's not Judy, myself, we are a community, and I think it has to be said that it's about us as a staff
So,
moving along for emergent group, moving along, it's not just my class honoring the child, it's us as a whole.
so when you use we, when you use I. I happen to represent our school in this session this summer. And as I was faced with making a choice, I thought about us, I thought about our work, and this is where I landed. And I'm really excited that we're in this together. Okay? So yeah, you made the choice now on behalf of the work you're doing. We. As much as we can. So I'm aware that there are a couple of you who need to move this to the next place, if you feel comfortable around how you're going to open. We can go there, or we can break into practice sessions, given that you have a little bit of an outline for your script, so to speak. Are you feeling like you want to do that? Do you want to role play? What's of value for everybody right now?
I'd like to try it.
You want to try?
Yeah, either of them.
I think everyone should give it a go. You've got to try it. You've got to do it. Do you want to create small groups of 4? Or 2 schools? How about you're a pod there, you two join those 2, and you are together, but you're in a place similar. All right. Call me if I get
No, I didn't want to run over your needle. Those shoes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're trying to figure out.
You're going to actually
So let me just tell you.
opening
Are we
meeting
planning?
Yeah.
We're planning
What we're saying, right,
Okay,
right.
want to make sure we're all.
So what I have to say is that we have a little bit of a different situation in that we do meetings through Skype. And we have a lot, like the group keeps getting bigger and bigger. I mean, this is our 3rd summer, and then I probably have 2/3 of my staff. So
Okay, can you tell us a little about it?
So people, and you can say
It's, we get together and it's much more informal because I didn't get staff meetings.
we do it at school.
Okay.
But, we're in shorts, which automatically, is casual, and we're sitting around, and I know the teachers really feel that they have a voice in this, that they can say things that they might not necessarily say in a more formal setting.
Can I clarify what's the purpose of these? No, what do you learn?
So if they decide, I think what we started 3 years ago was really to learn a little bit more about Reggio. Okay, and then we picked different aspects of Reggio to bring in based on what people were interested in.
And then,
Well, like the first year we started talking about the journey of
And it sort of came up, like it kind of,
Right, but-
it was like sort of documentation.
Right, but
Let's talk about that.
it came up, and we all decided to do Journey Finders. We had never ever done that before. So the 2s and the 3s, the 4s didn't because they were leaving, came up and figured out what they wanted to put in a Journey Finder. Now, if we hadn't had that summer collaborative,
We never would have done that kind of a process.
where we could all talk about it, it never would have happened.
You're gonna practice.
Interesting, because,
So it generates ideas.
And it
but
takes,
no specific text, or do you have a specific book? Does someone book me? I didn't do anything.
Well, so I run it, so we've had other people run it, and it's like, it's sort of, but there is an agenda, and there is a topic, and sometimes we'll read an article in advance, and, you know.
but it's, what it does is it takes the onus off Randy and her words and what she's saying all the time, and it really gives the teachers the chance, and it feels more comfortable talking in that.
No, maybe because it's the summer. So our thinking is that's not my entire staff, and I have to really go back and look and see if all of my. So it's not everybody. So I think that we want to do sort of.
This should probably not be done over the
I
summer.
think we want to do a little. What I'm thinking, but I don't know what your thinking is, like a soft. What do you call it? Soft opening. You know, like a soft opening with the people that are there, with my, being able to communicate with those who aren't, so they're not left out, so that they know what's going on. But we might, like, that's my thinking with this, and maybe not the first meeting, because it's not the purpose of these meetings. Right.
But it's some of the things that you may be talking about that, how are you feeling about this? You know what I'm saying? That can come up so that when the opening meeting is there, there's already 3/4 of the staff that's behind it.
Right. Or understands it, or buys into it, or has worked on it a little bit, or thought about it a little bit. That can be helpful to the ones who aren't part of the meetings, in September.
Do you send an email to those people who don't show up at the meeting saying we discussed X, Y, Z, or no?
You do send the minutes out.
I think I did send. Yeah, I think I did send something out, but I don't know if I sent it to just the people. I think it's just the people who want to be a part of it. So not.
And it should be, because the summer is our time. So.
Yeah, I wrote, who is we?
There are people who don't even want to set foot in the school and think about it.
I understand that. That's totally up to them. That's really okay.
So I would, if I were you, I would not use the summer meetings to introduce
You might be right.
because this is going to be, your goal and your vision for, this coming school year. And I would, want the full faculty to be there.
But so it's more learning, it's more learning based on what people are interested in. So like I already know, we've made a decision on our environments to change, like, I'm not very dictatorial, like I don't tell, but I got to a point this year where through this journey, like I just felt like I had to say, everything comes off the walls and it doesn't go back on the walls, unless you can tell me why it's there, or answer for yourself, what's the purpose of it, and what was the child's voice in it, okay? And that's got people very nervous.
But it's also, you say the child's voice in it, but where's the teacher's voice?
Right, well, it's got to be a little
But,
bit.
and that's what
right,
we
so that's what it is. So I already know, like our first. So yeah, it'll be a learning. We're going to be talking about environments.
Okay.
So I already know our first meetings on environments. I think somebody else put into something Jewish, so I know we'll have something about
The Carter and Curtis book has why.
Right, I know. I think we already talked about we'll probably do something. One meeting will be about our curriculum night and maybe how we want to change up our curriculum night based on what we know and what we learn. So we have a few things planned, and then sometimes it just comes up. It comes up. Things come up. So and then that's what we decide.
How often?
Once a week for 8 weeks. But people have to commit to 6 out of the 8, because people take vacation. So we say don't sign up unless you know you can make at least.
And you're
2
paying
years.
them for this?
I am. I do.
Oh, and you pay.
Yes.
Why don't you have them take into fewer things?
Like, it's possible that we will, like, so that we will go deeper into one thing, two things, is that, instead of, yeah. Yeah, it's possible this summer, but that's what will happen. It will be a different topic for everybody. But anyway, I don't want to take any. Well, I have to really take a look at the list.
What's your staff?
We have 25 staff, and I think this summer we might have like 13 or 14. We might even have 15 who signed up. It's really like 2/3 when I looked at it. Which, you know, I think
it's all the teachers.
it might be all the teachers. I have to look. I really haven't like all the leads, right?
But why wouldn't you start learning around the tool for next year?
Because you also want the assistants.
We do want the assistants to have a voice, but then again, like I know what you're going to say is that then the teachers can be the leaders for their assistants to bring their assistants along. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's a gift to have this set up every summer and to the learning of it. That's not necessarily related to
Because I think together, we're going to do that.
I think I'm going to go back and look at some.
You have to look and see who's coming.
I do. I have to go back and look, but I think it's a possibility. I do know, and it doesn't have anything to do with explaining this, but I think that we should start with the norms like that. Like I think that's a great thing.
Yes.
And and again, we'll have it for those meetings, and then we'll bring it in September, and and it'll be a living document.
So are you going to tell them what are you going to tell them?
I think we can't help but tell them because it's like
because you went here.
We went, and it's exciting.
And they don't quite understand what it is.
But they do know. They do know we're continuing our work. They and they know what project meeting is.
Right.
It's like they know all of that.
It's hard to acknowledge it when the coach comes in and is like there and working with them. It's hard for them not. I mean, I can't imagine.
The other interesting thing that they did, and I don't know what I'll do with this, we ended our year. So in our last meeting, we were all together. In the meetings that Betsy did with us, we had to split half and half to really get everybody trained. But I felt it was important that everybody be together for part of the time. In our last meeting, we did that. And she ended it, like I feel like there's a light, almost like the light switch has been turned on, and so Betsy took that metaphor and she played music, something about let your light shine through, and she actually made cards with that on the front, and everyone wrote a letter to themselves about their journey from this past year, and sort of what they're looking forward to in next year, and that's gonna, that's going to sort of start their process of thinking about their goal, because they've already thought a little bit about that. So, but again, I don't know that I would reintroduce that over the summer, but that might be my reintroduction in September, is to hand everybody back their cards, with the goal sheets. I mean, there's a lot of logistics that are going to be new. I mean, even Kathy was like, "Wow, we're doing that,"
It's a lot of meetings.
A lot of meetings, which we talked about at the end of the year, but not the logistics. So, like all the logistics, it's going to be new, and it's going to be a little bit of a shocker. Like, and I don't know that I want to spoil everybody's summer.
See, I thought something I had to warn them before.
Oh, I did that.
Want them to come in.
No,
I'm saying.
But then when you see it in black and white,
right, correct.
It's very different.
But that's the meeting
18, extra. I know. I mean, I'm saying, I think that my opening meeting will, in September, will have a lot of logistics. Just,
how would you open? Tell us. How would you open the meeting
in September?
In September. I would like to open it on a very high.
Personally, I think like the first thing is to get the inspiration. Like you want to do something that's really that people what you're doing, and at the same time have everyone clearly understand what you're doing. So that's where saying the goal would come in, but I wouldn't do it as a saying the goal. I would like storytelling. You know what I mean? Like access why I find that if you feel passionately about something and you clearly understand why this is so urgent, and then you communicate that people will understand that. So to me, the story here is that not that we've been doing things wrong all these years, but the story is that our world is different. And in this different world, we cannot continue doing the same thing that we've always been doing and expect different results. Albert Einstein, right? Like, we have to change which is the world. And I feel like we have, and I would say this is actually what I find so sometimes that is which is that there's this about this is our but sometimes that digitalization and technology. Who wants to learn about how jobs are going to be obsolete? And what we're saying is, how do you make sure that your job exists? That's by making sure that you are even more human. And what's the human thing that computers cannot do? It's those interpersonal relationships. So in other words, a computer can decide on a curriculum a computer can decide on units and themes and what should be done every single day of the week way better than you can. A computer is not going to, about some details that's supposed to be taught. What a computer cannot do and is not going to do in our lifetime is pay attention and hear what they're saying and realize and recognize what they need from like that to me is a powerful story. And again, you tell it how you tell it, but I would start in that place of like really deeply owning why this is not negotiable. Not because I said so, because this is not negotiable.
Fine, it's great. I love it. The only thing is, can I ask you, do you happen to know if any early childhood book that I could, would you know of like a book, a great book? I love to start my meetings with a story, like to read a book. I find that
so I have to tell you.
Oh yeah,
I find
the new one about what's it called?
Because it brings
what's an idea?
Yes, I did. That was my. That was what our theme this year was, the big idea.
The Roosevelt, you know about how she wants to be an inventor.
Yeah. Oh, the art. The art. Yeah, I have it. I just bought it. Okay. What else?
So,
if you could think, it doesn't have to be right now, but I would be interested. I get a few of them. I read 2 great books this year at meetings. They were so powerful. It just had great conversations we had to follow. One was a very Reggio Epstein book. Why am I blanking?
There are 10 schools.
One was about a woman who dreamed a black woman. That makes a difference. A black woman, and she lived in this little house, and she let all the dreams come true. And when the kids would come to visit her, she would say, "Oh, she would just give them choices and options, and they lived this great life. And then she got sick, and then come back to Toronto, and they would do these things. It was so good. That was one of the. Second one was about a pretend. When this lady was little, she used to pretend to be on an island, and they took glass pieces, and they did this, and they took the beach, and they did this, and it's just giving kids choices and imagination, and oh my God, it was so. I used both those books. Why I'm blank, I don't know. But so if you had a story. I find that very, very powerful to open up and then go into conversation of what you just said.
Well, the other thing, so I have a body of documentation from our journey this past year, and in fact, when we ended with Betsy, it was telling the story. And we had a story to tell. And so now I am sitting with all of that, and I want to produce something. And one of the things I was thinking of doing was producing a book.
I was going to just say,
and
you could do it on Snapchat.
And just because I feel like it would elevate for them, what we did, and it would really honor what they did, but it would also, and it would be a document of our journey so far, and something I would leave out. Like we have, we have an identity board of all of our staff, and this year I'm going to add like sort of a table in front of it for some of the children's work and things like that, whatever. But this is something I could leave out that everyone could see, parents could see, to honor what we did. So that's like, I feel like if I could get that done, when I get that done, that story would be a story to tell. You know what I'm saying? They've already seen the story because we sort of went through it, but it was in a raw form of documentation. And I feel like it could be put into something through maybe everyone could help. Yeah. Because I don't think it's also
incorporate the why. Because I think about you, and it really often is not included. Like, why are we doing this? And I also like that. Why is this necessary? It gets hard. I think it gets harder. But I think it's
the other things because you teach someone you make them work for your attention and show them the importance of the work that they've done over the year. And then, you bring it back to the teachers, doing that for the children.
Well, right, it has meaning because it's everything's parallel.
Right, you're asking them, to do this kind of thing.
Well, and our goal is, what's interesting is, our goal is deeper work, larger work, and so they could see a process of what they've been doing now for, really, and it was funny because when I initially told the story, I said, we started last year, and then I don't know if it was you or someone said, no, Randy, you started 2 years ago. I said, oh yeah, like when I took Rick Ellis's course, and I brought that back, and then we went to our first paradigm before we were part of this, and I brought that back, and then we went out to Mariah, and I brought that, but those were all pieces for them too.
Right, but we hadn't done it. We hadn't been involved. We were listening.
Well, you were, right, and then the next step was all of this year, was then bringing it.
But I think it's also if you start with our journey from last year, I think it's a very powerful, positive message that you're giving. Not just, we have to do this and we have to do that, and this is coming up, but look where we started, look where we are. And that's the pat on the back that we're recognized for our value. That doesn't always happen at a first staff meeting because and not you, the director is so busy trying to go, this is what we're, doing and
Brian, what would you do next after you did the story on the why? You have it down. They have to do it. They're doing it. They're on the journey.
Remind them of the why because you've already been doing it. So remind them of the why.
Yeah, that's very important.
Now, are you saying the first thing?
Yeah, I would love to read the story first and have this discussion.
Something inspirational.
I would definitely do. So I don't know if I would start with this or do this next. We're not supposed to do that right now.
Yeah, that's what she told us. That's what she told us to do.
I think she wanted us to practice your opening, your opening meeting.
I can say it. I certainly can say it. I feel, that, we've all been part of Project Lead. We're entering into our second year. And, according to the mission or vision that we set out last year, and that's, do you remember it's, a word hanging, okay, let's just review this one more time. It really talks about excellence in our practice. It talks about best practice in early childhood. So we're continuing on that journey this year, individually, in teams and as a whole
And also they're
to continue to work on our best practice. And that means different things for each and every one of you. You know, everyone's in a different place in what you want to accomplish and where, you know, where you are, what you're thinking and what you're doing. But we're here as a group to collaborate together this year, to support each other, and to help one another. So that's going to happen in a bunch of different ways. Okay, so it's going to start with the person, and we're going to go back to goal setting. And you did this last year as part of the project, but you might not remember. And I think if you can remember back, it's wonderful. And you were, you know, but you know, this is the overarching goal for our group this year, and it's to take, you know, overarching this is honoring the child, okay, and that's being done through deeper emergent curriculum. You know, really trying to listen and trying to find a thread that gives you something to do on not just the surface level, but at a deeper level. And it's hard to know what that is until we go through the process. And you can really decide your goal in that bigger goal. Might be, you know, you want to work on your modeling of children. You're modeling with children. You might want to work on your open-ended questions. You might want to work on your listening. And these are all skills, if you can remember, they're skills we worked on last year, so we're just going to continue at another level. So, and hopefully you are not at the same place you were last year when you worked on those goals. So I'm going, you know, I'm going to hand out this sheet for you to look over. We're going to talk about it. I think here, but you know, basically, I probably go over with them. You know, this is what you're going to be thinking about, and you don't have to write it. We're going to meet and talk about it, and we can do it together. You can do it before you come to the meeting. I'd like you to do a little bit of thinking about this before you come to the meeting. So. And you see the site lead goal, which I just read to you. It's right here on the top of your page. And you have the overarching goal. And now you need to pick something within that that you would like to accomplish for the year. So, you know, so it's slow, baby steps, you know, and then once if you feel like you met that goal, what would it look like? What would success look like? And what steps would you like to take to work on this goal? Is it that you want to work on it, you know, in your morning meetings? Is it that you want to work on it during center times? Is it something you want to work on when you're in the playground or in the garden? Or, you know, what are your action steps? And what's your timeline? And remember, you have the whole year, so it's not something you have to do tomorrow. It's something, you know, you can sort of map out. And then what's important is you're not going to alone. So really, what kind of help do you need to help make your goal? And then what would tell you, or me, or anyone, that you made progress? What's an indicator that you're moving towards that goal? Okay. So this is yeah, that was from yesterday. So you
What I think that you're opening as an exercise you do before, whether it's using a
picture, okay.
or writing things like this down, which are so necessary to organize this.
But like, how do you inspire people to get together and then maybe do some learning around that sort of thing? And then part two is introducing this.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to, okay. They're going to, gotcha.
But I think that after that introduction, I think if we do the norms, everyone has a part in that, and then you can go on and say, and this is what we're doing to inspire our faculty for the child. We honored ourselves by doing this, and honor the child the same way.
I am taking full responsibility for the fact that your lasagna is probably not as hot as it might have been 20 minutes ago. but it was my decision, I'm owning this, to extend this time because this is incredibly valuable.
It was very valuable.
For the next 30 minutes, it's your time.
But we need you for the next. We need you for the next 30 minutes after the 30 minutes.
And we'll pick up where we left off.
Yes, I have the names. Okay. Miss Tizzy was one of them. Miss Tizzy. Marty might know. Miss Tizzy, something, it definitely Miss Tizzy. It was Betsy, can I bother you in the 30 minutes? Would you know, I suggest that maybe we start with an inspirational story that we tell them, whatever. I found that this year I used children's books to begin my meetings. They were very rigid. One was Miss Tizzy.
I don't know it.
Oh my God! And there was another one, Tizzy, and another. I can't remember the name. It was. They were kind of more together.
Oh, you got to.
And then I could look it up. Okay. And I wanted to. Do you have an inspirational story, like a children's book that I could read to them that would motivate them?
What's your message? What's your favorite? What do you want it to be?
I wanted to be motivational. Why they have
Through a children's story?
Yeah, through a children's story.
There's just so many possibilities. Yes, I do. There's a book called Together. And if you want to create unity, and I used to read it for Parents' Night called Together. You know, you pull the crank off and turn the wheel together.
Yeah. Okay, I do.
But that
Miss Tizzy, I said that was
it. But that's because I wanted to show partnership.
okay.
So that book choice was for that.
That's Together.
Together, it's
This is the book. That's the book.
It's by Libba, Libba.
More great.
May I see the cover?
Jada Rowland. And then you said the other one is about Rosie Arquette.
No, Rosie the Architect, that's a different book, and I don't know if it's Rosie. Is it Iggy the Architect? Oh my God, excellent, excellent, yes.
And what's the point? What's the essence of the book?
That, which one?
What would the hashtag be?
Just trying to.
I don't even do that.
I'm just trying to think.
Best I can.
Which one was that? Was that my
You
first?
may want to get your plates at least to put them in front of you.
If you think of any other children's books, Ronnie, when I asked you, remember I told you I read 2 books this year? I read like to my staff, and you knew the book. One was Miss Tizzy. Just had a return. She was very kind. She was but that wasn't the first book. That was the second. The books that I read to my staff, and you said you knew which ones. They were very Reggio inspired. They went to a beach, and when she was little, she went to a beach, and they used to pretend all the things they collected, the colored glass, and they made them into houses and Roxabox. Thank you so much. Roxaboxen. I couldn't Roxabox.
Here's what we should do. Just put up a sheet of inspirational books.
Oh my God. I never heard of it. So I started with the big idea or the great idea. That was the first book that I read. Roxabox. I read Mrs.
And it's about like a pretend world that
she let them and all these other things
and their children end up
and they came to her window and they did them in return for that world.
You know, it's not from the talent, you know, each class.
So I thought I could get it. You right, exactly. Roxabox. Excellent. Roxabox. Nothing and what they pretended. Maybe Owen, right? I think it was Ian. Oh, it's Ian.
We're gonna need a trend.
I can't do it now without asking them like days, I find that I have to do the calendar with my teachers, because I have certain people can't do certain days, like what if they have to carpool a certain day, or I want to do it on a day that fits them, so how could I just put that in?
Here we're gonna be ready like everyone had those books. What's the next step?
Very beautiful.
Hi.
What is the bill?
Yes, I hate to disturb your lunch, but I just want to tell you that Betsy put up a book, a sign for inspirational children's books to use at staff meetings. I recommended Miss Tizzy and Rox the Boxin, and the big idea or the great idea. I'm not sure what.
You need like everybody's ideas.
Yes. I would love everybody's ideas, so please add to it if you have a great book. Thank you.
Susie, my first day, I went to the school, I would be from.
I read things lost in
Just like, so you always have like other days coming up.